So let's start with the TVA work. Lie down on your back for me, and we'll start there, picking up on some of the things that we did last week. And if you weren't here last week, no big deal. I will recap everything. We'll start there with the TVA business so that we have a sense of purpose and availability in the center, a sense of breath moving that complements or combines with a sense of strength in the center, and then we'll radiate out from there today. So you'll lie with knees bent, feet on the floor, knowing that you are welcome to support yourself as you see fit. So a blanket behind the head or any sort of prop behind the knees, a bolster or a rolled blanket is more than appropriate. If knees bent, feet on the floor feels close but not quite right, it could be knees bent, feet on the floor, thighs leaning into each other. And you'll take your hands to your belly, fingertips in line with the belly button, but to the left and the right. So you get kind of that side belly space or side belly cavity. Elbows are resting on the ground, so you want to situate the arms in such a way that there isn't any effort in keeping them there, and spend a few inhales and a few exhales, feeling that your fingertips rise ever so slightly with the inhale, and then they fall ever so slightly with the exhale. So we're not necessarily accentuating anything yet. We're not necessarily looking for a certain style of breath. Rather, you're just feeling the fingers rise and fall with the natural rhythm that occurs to you today. So let's spend a few moments there, and then we'll build upon and exaggerate that relationship, fingertips to belly, belly to breath. Perhaps if it interests you, spend the first couple of moments breathing here, checking in with your intellect and your emotional body. How you feeling? How you doing? Knowing that there is, of course, not one right answer to that question. Nice big inhale and add on to the end of the inhale. So there's the regular breath in and then a little bit of supplementation on your part, followed by an exhale that goes to empty. And that empty, press your fingers into your belly a little bit to remind the belly of what it means to be hollow. On the inhale, you'll release that press and fill up to the point that feels natural and just slightly beyond. So there's that bit of supplementation on the inhale again. And then you exhale, smooth and natural, no forcing, all the way to the point of empty, and then draw the belly in and press the fingers in for that feeling of hollow at the end of the exhale. Do several rounds like that. So that the end of the inhale and the end of the exhale each have a little bit more life to them. And your fingers are involved with the exhale. You may find that as you go through a few rounds more, the muscles of your belly, the muscles of the abdominals, they are eager to hug in at the end of the exhale so that your fingers are following the squeeze. Two more like that. Alright, continue to breathe well. Take your hands away. Let the wrists rest on the floor. And a few of those dynamic breath cycles are now available to you. And by dynamic, I mean the inhale is sizable without forcing. The exhale feels thorough and strong and sort of freeing. Breathe in a sense of lifted energy for your noon hour. You breathe out any heavy or negative energy that isn't serving you today. One more big deep breath in. One more full exhale. From there, we'll do arms on the mat, knees bent, feet on the floor. If that means rearranging your legs, please do. This time we want a little bit of space between the thighs. Option to plug a block into that space between the thighs if the reference point is helpful for you. You'll take a nice long inhale and lift the hips ever so slightly. Take the first round to sort out the feet, and by that I mean make them parallel. Plant your heels beneath your knees. Hug the block with your inner thighs, should you be using one. And take a big expansive inhale that rides high in the chest. So there's some belly left over from the original exercise, but most of the air now seems to go into your chest muscles and your collarbones. Back of the neck is nice and long. Inhale while you're up here, feeling strong legs, and when you exhale, articulate your way back down to the floor. Feeling that the exhale no longer has that sense of squeeze at the end, rather the exhale is totally passive. Take a moment on the floor and then start again. A little bit of navel to spine, and then the lift, glutes off the ground. Find a medium high resting place, hug the block. Take a decent inhale into the chest and the collarbones while at the same time feeling strong legs accumulating. And when you exhale, articulate your spine back down to the floor, feeling that the exhale is completely passive and totally relaxed. Let's do two more. Navel to spine, hips off the ground, medium high. Pause to feel a chest-centered inhale. On the exhale, articulate back down to the floor. Take a moment on the mat, relax all of the way. And then begin the last round, navel to spine, hips off the mat. Medium high for a bit of a hold, building a sense of strength in the lower body while the chest accepts an inhale. exhale to articulate your way back down. You can take the block away if you were using one. And extend your right leg long on the floor. Give me a nice stiff, flexed foot for a moment. And then bring the left knee up into the chest. 2 hands on your thigh or your shin. Any place that feels readily available for holding on to. Your left leg may trace a bit to the left so as to clear your front side, belly, chest, etc. So give that leg a strong squeeze. And then release the heel to the mat, so it's as though you have half a bridge. Slide that heel out until both legs are straight. You can stiffen the legs, which includes a squeeze of your glutes, right? So there's some strength and some tightness in the lower body. On the exhale, you relax all of that and bring the right knee into the chest, holding shin or the back of the thigh. Just like the first side, you allow for your right leg to trace a little bit to the right. You get that nice deep hip flexion using the strength of your arms. On the exhale, release the right foot down to the ground and make a point to slide that heel out, right? Sort of lightly tracing along the length of your mat until both legs are stiff and straight. I want you to feel a squeeze in your glutes, like a strong wrinkle in your backside. Feel how that raises the pelvis, stretches the front of the hips nice and long. You release so that everything goes real soft and real squishy, and now left knee comes in for the same thing first side. So I want for this knee pull as you execute to be really soft. There's not any stiffness in either leg. Just a nice strong pull and a good deep flex at the left hip flexors, asking for them to relax. And then release this foot for the slide. You go from half a bridge to a nice long sneaky leg. When the feet are matching, you squeeze the glutes and feel the front of the pelvis become very spacious. Relax the glutes and bring the right knee into the chest for the pull. Remember that this one is totally passive, so we're working with whatever hip availability you have, whatever mobility you have without forcing anything at all. Release the right foot to the mat, knee bent, and then a slide of the heel all the way out to matching feet where you stiffen the glutes and squeeze the legs, and maybe even flex the feet. Feel the strength that you would feel if you were standing upright. Exhale to release, one more on each side. Left knee comes up into your hands, left thigh comes up into your hands. Give that leg a squeeze, and then check in. Is everything as passive as it could be? Release left foot to the floor for your slide, feeling as though you could create a little divot in the floor, and then squeeze into 2 straight legs, nice and stiff. Flex the feet. Release all muscles of the lower half. Bring right knee up into chest. Last one. Thigh drawn nice and close. Check in. Are all the muscles totally passive? Release the right foot down to the ground. Slide that right heel out. Stiff legs one last time. Squeezing the glutes for a spacious pelvis up front. Exhale to release. And lie here in a mini shavasana for a few moments. If your back bothers you, you could bend the knees. Make it so that you are symmetrical for a beat and you are able to simmer in the division between strength and surrender. As you're ready, you'll roll to one side or the other, from your back to your side. Make yourself a headrest when you get there. You can use your own arm. Stack the knees and allow for the top arm to drape in front of you. Close your eyes. Let your nose droop toward the floor. Take a breath or two into your back. Feeling a few moments here for blood flow to shift. In your own time, you'll press off the ground nice and easy. Let your head be one of the last things to come up. And when you are upright, friends, I'll invite you to arrange some version of a cross-legged seat. For me, that means sitting up on a folded blanket. For you, it could mean the same. Or a bolster, if you want to be higher. Or even a chair, if sitting cross-legged on the floor is a problem for you. All right, so a little rotational movement to radiate out from the hips. Left hand comes across the body to the right knee. Right hand goes behind you, light touch on the mat, and an easy turn to look directly to the right. Take an inhale to sit tall. And stay for the exhale. Wrap your way through the center or swing your way through the center and catch the other side, allowing for the inhale to sit you tall, while the exhale turns you to look dead left. Inhale again. Stay for the exhale. Inhale, swing through the center. One more time to the first side. That'll be left hand to right knee, right hand behind. Sit up nice and tall. Exhale, twist and turn. Stay here, breathe in. Twist and turn. Inhale, swing through the center, hands nice and low. One more time on the second side. Inhale, sit tall. Exhale, turn. Inhale, sit tall. Exhale, turn. Inhale, come back to the middle. Pause in the center with your hands on your knees or your thighs. If you would like to switch the crossing of your legs, you could. Opposite ankle in front. Close your eyes here, friends, and take a few beats to simply sit. And think on how the ribs feel after mild twisting. Think on what it means to breathe passionately with the belly. So those inhales and exhales that we started with today, lying down on our backs, are somehow still present here. Breath moving in concert with the musculature and the strength of your core. As you're feeling ready, eyes open, change to hands and knees. We'll continue to work with the rib cage. This time, flexion and extension instead of rotation or twisting. So shoulders over wrists, hips over knees for a few rounds of simple cat and cow. Feeling that the up and the down originate from your rib cage more than anything else today. For now, let's breathe in. We stretch the belly and look forward. When you exhale, curl the navel to the spine and drop your tailbone down, chin to chest, with a strong press from the arms. Back and forth between the two for several rounds here. Again, inhales for lifting the gaze. Exhales for rounding the other way. exhales to curl. One more, friends. Inhale to lift. And then exhale to curl and stay here. A nice round cat, navel to spine, and within your cat, breathe in. So that the exhale is now for cow pose. Tail high, open chest. Inhale to cat, nice and high in the back. Exhale to cow pose. Inhale to cat, friends, nice and high. One last time, exhale to cow. Inhale to neutral, my friends, somewhere between cat and cow. Widen the knees and make your way back to some version of child's pose. Hips to heels, arms forward, and forehead down. Provided, of course, that this is appropriate for you. Alternative to child's pose, you could lie flat to your belly or leave the hips high for a heart melting pose with forehead on the ground. To lift your heart. Returning to hands and knees, we'll continue to work our way up from the ribs into the shoulder cradle by a little bit. So I'll give you a front-facing view of this. We're going to work with a little dynamic thread the needle. I think that all of you are probably at least a little bit familiar with thread the needle. This one we want to be really fluid and active, so we won't stay. Take your right hand to the middle of the mat, take your left arm up in the air, have a big inhale. And when you exhale, thread this shoulder through, all the way down just behind the right wrist. Pause for just long enough to set your head down on the ground. I like to move my top arm to a little tented, bent elbow setup. And then you come right back out, right hand to the mat, left arm up in the air, big inhale. And then the same side again. So you exhale to thread right back down, left shoulder to the mat, and it's tense where appropriate in the right hand. Right hand to the mat, left arm up in the air. We'll do two more just like that. Big inhale at the top. Exhale to thread it through. Stay here, breathe in. Stay here, exhale. Right hand to the mat, breathe in. This is your last round on this side. I'll let you go at the pace that works for you. You make your exit in your own time, finishing with left arm nice and high. And then back to the ground, all fours. Now, knees are probably feeling it, so take a little breather. Tuck the toes. Lift the knees and find yourself in some version of a squat. I like heels together, feet together. If a wide-footed malasana would be better for you, feel free. If the opportunity to drop your heels and stand all the way up presents itself, feel free. And then come right back down through your squat, Malasana of choice, back to the kneecaps and then to all fours. This time it's left hand to the middle of the mat, right arm up in the air. Big inhale, very nice. Exhale to thread it through, right shoulder to the mat. Left hand to the mat, right arm up in the air. Big inhale to open fluidly, stacking one side over the other. Exhale, thread the needle, right shoulder dipping down. Stay here, breathe in. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Left hand to the mat, right arm up in the air. You've got 2 more full cycles. Thread the needle, number 3 of 4. Left hand down in order to raise the right arm up. Last cycle coming up sometime soon. Right arm finishes by rising all the way up in the air. And then back down to the floor. Second round of Malasana of choice. So, tuck the toes and walk your weight back off the knees to the feet. Palms on the floor would be fine. If your preference is to go wide-footed, please do. Allow for a moment to round forward between your knees, which means elbows are inside the thighs. And rest into that moment of heaviness. This time we'll all stand on purpose, so thighs together, heels down, and hips up simultaneously. On the way to standing, take a forward fold. So feet at hips width distance. Soft bend in the knees and a chance to ragdoll yourself. Forearms or elbows, a good gripping spot for the hands. Release the grip when you're ready and take a high halfway lift. Palms on the knees or even the thighs as you extend your spine forward in space. On the exhale, forward fold. On the inhale, we come to standing all the way up, arms overhead with those strong, stiff legs from the beginning of class. Raise the palms up nice and high. Look up between your thumbs. And then exhale, hands to the heart. Simply standing at the top of the mat. All right, friends, a little flow right here. On the inhale, arms up nice and tall. Feel your legs become strong and sturdy. Exhale to fold, bending the knees on the way down. Allow for your crown to hang. Halfway lift on the inhale. Palms as high as they need to be. When you exhale, forward fold, hands down, and feet back to either downward facing dog, that's your choice, or direct route to the knees for a sinking in your chest, so that either way we are all dropping in the forehead, allowing for the heart to hang low. Everybody inhale forward to plank and make your way to your belly, snaking down onto the ground. At the bottom, let's reach hands back and reach feet back for a little locust pose, floating from the strength of the back body. Exhale to release. Plant the hands and go child's pose, up and over some wide knees. Child's pose is no good for you. Again, heart melting pose, or even lying flat on your belly. An extension of the locust for continued rest. Child's pose, we all return to hands and knees. From there, you could either go to down dog and step forward, or we can swing one foot up toward the top of the mat, lift, and step the other foot to the top of the mat. In any case, it's a forward fold with ragdoll coming into play once again. Halfway lift, breathe in. Forward fold, exhale. Inhale to rise all the way up to standing, feeling that something about your legs, something about your belly are simultaneously strong. Hands to the heart when you exhale. Pause here, breathe in. Breathe out. On the inhale, arms up, big and tall for your second of 2 cycles. Forward fold, exhale, all the way down. Halfway lift, inhale. Palms down for downward facing dog, or direct route to the knees for heart melting pose. In both scenarios, fan the fingers, stick the palms down, and allow for your heart to drift back. There's a quick plank on the inhale, pulling forward in order to lower to your belly. At the bottom, 2 arms and 2 legs reaching straight back for locust. Inhale. Exhale, release, and find your way one last time to child's pose, rolling over wide knees. Popping the forehead down to the ground one way or another for 3 breaths in rest. Nicely done, friends. On your next inhale, rise up and make your way to seated once again. You might have a blanket nearby for this portion. And I'll have you start by sitting square on the mat. And by square, I mean right on the ground, no blanket or anything underneath your seat just yet. Match your feet in front of you so that you've got a really stretched out bound angle. And from there, I'll have you lean into your right butt cheek so that your left leg is free to drop back by a little bit. That means that both legs are bent at 90 degrees. Your blanket might be useful for padding the back knee, or it might help you to rest the front knee. Or if you have 2 blankets handy, you can do a little bit of both. Either way, you are turning your sternum to align with the femur of the front leg. So in this case, sternum over right thigh, and not too far. It is possible to twist beyond that point. As a matter of fact, it might feel good to twist that far. After a moment, however, you come back to be nice and square with your front thigh and start to hinge forward just like we would in half pigeon. There's a little bit of a flex in your front foot to protect the knee. Some of us will rest on hands, and others might have the freedom to come down to elbows around that right leg. Whatever it is you do, this should tap you into a stretch that feels sort of like half pigeon, if you are familiar. If you are not, no big deal. Know that you are looking for a sense of stretch or freeing in the muscles that make up the back side of your right hip. So that might very well feel like your glutes themselves, or a little inner thigh, maybe a little hip crease or outer hip on the right side. Recognize that shifting your torso a little bit left or a little bit right, now that you have folded, could make all the difference in accessing something that feels good and useful. This is a place where we would like for legs to be passive. So if you think back to the beginning of class, we did some knee squeezing with passive legs. This shape is not exactly like, but is close to the knee squeezing. So go for passive legs. Feel that if there's any electricity in your muscles, it comes down ever so slightly for 2 breaths to go right here. Inhale, you'll make your way up, lifting the spine, using your hands probably behind you on the floor to shift left foot back up to match the right. Lean back into your hands and butterfly the legs a few times. By that I mean thighs together and then thighs apart. Thighs together, knowing that they'll feel different, of course. Thighs apart. One more time, knees together and knees apart. Soles are touching as your starting point. Sit up nice and tall on those sit bones. Left hip takes your weight, left butt cheek takes your weight, and the right leg plops behind you, setting up so that you're bent at 90 degrees, give or take both legs. And let's start with that big round twist. You can pad the knees as you see fit and turn yourself all the way to the left. On the inhale, return part of the way such that your chest is lined up with your left thigh. And you start to fold in that direction, recognizing that hands may be the stopping point. Recognizing that elbows, 1 or 2 of them, could be the stopping point. Recognize that you have lots of time to make this just right, and that it's never about depth, rather about leaning into, literally and metaphorically speaking, sensation of the left hip, whether that is the same or different from the first side is of interest to you, but not necessarily something you have to do anything about. You're breathing well and looking for passivity, the very same soft muscles we had during your knee squeezing at the start. Next inhale, you'll work your way up off that thigh. Use 2 hands behind yourself to restore the legs. Sit nice and square on your sit bones and butterfly a few times. Leaning back nice and lazy into your hands. So that for a few moments here, the legs steal the show. It doesn't really take much work at all to bring the knees in and out. All right, from there, straighten the legs, 2 feet right out in front of you, with the possibility of sitting up on a blanket. With the possibility of a bolster behind your knees or some sort of cushion behind your knees. The bolster behind my knees is my favorite way to take a seated forward fold. Particularly if what you like about forward folds is back stretch over hamstring stretch, which is not to say that one is better than the other, just different. By bending the knees, we put the hamstrings in a place where they can be kind of slack and therefore less stretched. Whereas the back will stretch as you cascade forward in the direction of your thighs. I've got a little space between my knees, so there's a place for my belly and my chest to go. You can reach for calves, ankles, or feet, and bow the forehead as a finish. If the bolster behind the knees feels intrusive and you want more hamstring, you can lessen or eliminate that bolster, make it smaller or non-existent, so that the hamstrings are not in a place of slack and therefore will enjoy more stretch. So 2 different choices for what is essentially the same posture. Whether you have support or not, forehead level with the ground or forehead tucked down even. Please listen to your neck. Go for passive legs and passive feet today. Which is not to say that active would be wrong, just different. And breathe in such a way that you feel aware of your tailbone. You feel aware of your crown. You feel aware of the breathing that's happening in between. next inhale, friends, you'll start to work your way up. Recognize that you can rest down there for longer if you like. And then setting yourself up for rest, I would put on first socks, sweaters, open up a blanket for coverage. If you have a bolster or some sort of soft support available, keep that nearby. I like to just make a full 180 so that rather than bolster in front, it's bolster behind, so that you may drape yourself backward over it. Alternative to this, your back could go flat to the floor and your legs could continue to rest lifted, just a little bit high. When you get down to the ground, go for a nice long stretch, top to bottom, fingers and toes moving away from each other. A couple of times I invite you to reach the hands up to the ceiling and then stretch them back overhead. And then reach them up to the ceiling and stretch them back overhead. One more time to the ceiling. And then back overhead where you choose to, as your space allows, snow angel your arms down along the floor next to you. Until your wrists come almost all the way down to your hips or thighs. And then you inhale to snow angel right back up. There's a couple of those. A snow angel of the arms up and down, recognizing that your knuckles may drag the ground or they may not. That depends on the structure of your shoulders. I would not say that one is better than the other, just different. Find an altitude for the arms that feels appropriate to your shoulders and your chest. Feel that for the last round, the swinging of the arms invites in some nice, deep, chest-centered breath. Eventually, your arms will wish to settle down to the left and the right, somewhere in the middle of that snow angel pattern. Regardless of how you've arranged the props, I'll invite you to squeeze your glutes one more time. Remember that stiff-legged exercise that opened the front of the pelvis way back at the beginning. Enjoy that right here, so that when legs flop to passive and when glutes go soft again, there is true surrender available to you in the muscles of your body. And as a last piece of movement, I invite you to rock your head side to side several times. When stillness feels imminent, take any final wiggles that you need and give yourself over to that stillness. Recognize that it could take a couple minutes here to find yourself in true surrender. As you lie here and begin to drop into Shavasana or a supported Shavasana, I invite you to tune in to the remnants of the breath from the beginning of class. Sort of belly-centered breathing that once had the reference point of the fingertips and now seems to run by itself without help from the hands. The kind of breath that feels thorough and useful and grounding, without feeling as though you have to do any supplementation on either end at all. Because the breath feels steady, somehow unaffected by the other realities of your life, you discover that there is opportunity to drop into a deep well of observation. You are paying attention to yourself for the sake of paying attention to yourself. And you realize that anything that occurs to you is relevant. Physical sensation, intellectual activity, emotional uprisings, all of it is of great interest to you as you lie here. And you find that you can simmer in that interest without feeling as though you have to do anything about physical sensation or intellectual activity or emotional uprisings. Rather than doing, you are riding the rhythm of the breath and simply available, the way that you would be for a good friend. If I were to say that yoga practice was for any one thing, which it isn't, but if I were to say that, I would say that practice is for this sense of availability. So that with practice from one day to the next, you can successfully and effectively befriend yourself. So that you may successfully and effectively befriend and become available for the others in your life that need you. So that you may be available and calm and kind with the other humans of this world who seem to be far, far away from you. In this very friendly manner, my friends, that you soak up your rest. Resting as you are, I invite you to take your hands to the heart. That could be palm to palm or hands stacked on top of the heart. And you make a point to memorize this feeling of availability and this feeling of friendliness for the rest of your day, the rest of your week, the rest of your year, any length of time. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all beings never be parted from freedom's true joy. Thank you for your time, friends. Namaste.